What is up, guys, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Tumbly Drunk, and tonight on episode 38, we are hot off the heels of the Overwatch League 2020 opening weekend. We had a lot of stuff going down this past week. Some surprise starts, a couple of sicknesses, a lot of split time between some support duos, and maybe some surprise starts in regards to DPS. But, the stats were kind of like all over the place, which we'll get into here in just a minute. But before we jump into the agenda for tonight and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank all of our repeat listeners and thank everyone who is joining us tonight for our live show on Twitch. So as you can tell, we have a three-man crew. It will be for assuming that Ramses decides to show up or return home. One of the two, whichever happens first. I don't know which one it's going to be. But joining me tonight, as always, up first, after an 0-2 start, unfortunately, for Dallas, but, we got some positives to talk about for them, specifically that DPS duo. We got Boomer Bob. Bob, welcome back to the show.
What's going on? Yeah, it was, it was an okay start. I mean, we see that there is definitely talent there. I worry about a lot of the coaching choices, if they were the coaching choices or what happened there, but seemed a little unprepared, maybe because Dallas was preparing for the homestand. But either way, it was a good time. And I enjoyed a lot of other things over the weekend. This was an exciting weekend for me, to be sure.
Absolutely. And of course, we also have Big Head Ed. Ed, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing fantastic. It was a great first week of the Overwatch League. I watched the entire thing with no sound on. Because my family was up this whole weekend and I spent it with them. My parents flew back from Florida. All that stuff. Going through all the fun stuff because I am officially a homeowner. So
Woo!
That has been chaotic. Going through that whole process.
Was that your first time?
Yep.
You have to sign a lot of papers, don't you?
A shitload.
Oh my god! When I first did that, I was like, "What is going on right now? This is you guys are punking me, right? You guys are punking me."
I had to sign a form saying I signed the other forms. Like the fuck?
It's nuts.
Like,
it's nuts.
No, that shouldn't be a thing. But it was great. I was able to watch it. All hail King Fissure and Prince Ixie, or however you pronounce it. Z?
Exie.
I don't know. I don't know how to help you.
But he was probably the most fun DPS player I've had the pleasure of watching, and probably since season 1. Like, I had so much fun watching him just play.
Didn't you enjoy the 2 Reddit Lucios? I mean, that was what I took from the
Reddit Lucios were fun.
Rain and FD God I was like, Reddit Lucio's back. Somebody called DSP Stanky.
Yeah, but they weren't playing Symmetra and McCree. Like, come on, you can't doubt that. It was a rough week, as we knew it would be, because people started that we didn't expect. People sat that nobody.
Thanks, Violet.
Yeah, that so certain some leagues I did amazing in. You basically had an amazing week if you randomly picked someone who wasn't benched. But it was a lot of fun. I'm a little annoyed with Overwatch at the moment, the Overwatch League, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But Totem, how has your week been?
It's pretty good. I was a little worried kind of going in knowing that with the way that schedule works now, being Saturday and Sunday, and knowing that I rarely have either one of those days off, I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to watch everything leading up to Overwatch League Network, which we record on Mondays. But I basically only missed the first game each day and then the first map or two of that second set. So it wasn't as bad in regards to the catch-up mechanic as I was kind of expecting it to be. So it was manageable. So hopefully that is a good sign in regards to future viewings for myself because I really do want to consume as much of the games as possible. And there was a lot of stuff to kind of
I'm
take
curious, Totem.
in.
What do you like? Because this is something I was really curious about. You just said that you did it. How easy was it to find the VODs? Because last year on Twitch, it was a nightmare to find the VODs.
So basically, they did it a couple of different ways, Bob. They had it where they had the full broadcast for like a VOD, but then they also had it segmented into individual matches. And the matches themselves usually were going up about an hour, 20 minutes, an hour and a half after the match would conclude. But
Not bad.
the best thing the easiest way to find it is basically, go to the Overwatch League YouTube site and then click on, uploads, and it usually should be like one of the very first ones on there. But
Awesome.
it was relatively easy, and I didn't have to like jump around all over the place like I would have had to do on Twitch because I had some of those.
It
issues
was
this
a
past
nightmare.
season.
Yeah, it was a nightmare on Twitch.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, of course, it's been kind of an interesting start to the week, at least for Fantasy Overwatch League. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we did have the launch of the Stats Lab on the website, which introduced a lot of cool stuff, dating all the way back to like the inaugural season stats, all the way up to current. But, there was kind of a little bit of a hiccup, Bob, on that end, knowing that none of the stats were posted until about a little under 3 hours ago as of right now. So, it's kind of like put a foot down on certain aspects in regards to Fantasy Overwatch League. So, did you pay attention to like all the drama that kind of ensued off of that?
Oh yeah, you give us a lot, you take a lot away. I mean, the first thing that Mel and I thought when we saw that we saw the stats that we were like, oh my god, epic.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the fine little print, stats will be available Tuesday. And it's just, and the first thing we thought is, oh god, that sucks for fantasy. And then we thought, well, that also sucks for Owl Recap and Overwatch League Network.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have we'll be able to decipher things, later on in the season, talking about how they've done over a season, but we won't be able to have the live stats right during the show, which could be really great for content. And so those two things together are just a bummer. And not having the stats until Tuesday really sucks for fantasy. I mean, really sucks. Because that's what, you were watching it to see those live updates and be like, oh, you just need 3 more points. Just give me 3 more points. And that's part of why you're watching the games in at least football. You're like, come on, dude. 1 more field goal. 1 more field goal. Ramses comes in. But yeah, so not having that kind of sucks. And then there's been the whole role problems thing, where Architect played as DPS or as heals when he was, everyone was expecting Violet, including me. I played Violet in multiple leagues and I just never expected him to not play. I thought maybe he might sit a map or two and Rascal would come in like he did before last year, but I still thought it was a pretty good bet to play him. And yeah, so I don't know what else to say.
I completely agree with you. It sucks that we're getting it on Tuesday. If you thought you were pissed off about the API last year, sometimes not working, you're just like, well, at least you still got it when it worked day of.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's now we have to wait a couple days to find out if it's broken or not.
Well, and even then, I think last time I checked, some of the services have all their stats updated, some of them don't. I know.
Well, all right.
Live.
Draft Buff Live is High Noon's live. Fantasy OWL is not live because he's on a plane presently to Las Vegas.
Because aren't they basically?
Thanks, Val.
Aren't they basically correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they now have to pull the stats from that site and they're not able to pull it from a API. They actually have to build systems to pull it. So most likely this first week they're doing it manually.
Yep, they are. Because the API and the app itself is basically useless at this point. I know Gig from over at High Noon was asking about that because right now the app is pointless. There's no reason to even go on the app.
They have, it still says the next upcoming game is September 29th, Vancouver Titans versus San Francisco Shock.
That's awkward. They update that as much as they update the stat lists. Oh,
just about. You know, we appreciate all the work that goes into it. Unfortunately, it's a little slow to get out of the gates, at least for now.
Planet.
Hopefully, Captain Planet and if anyone is working alongside him,
he's our hero.
Over time, will speed up the process. But we know how much is actually going into this, and we do appreciate the stats. And
we
hopefully,
do have to say. It's awesome, though. It's awesome, right?
Stats as a
we
whole
all can agree
awesome.
on that.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at anything, literally anything.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome as a whole. Like from a non-fantasy player perspective, or if we didn't do a fantasy podcast, we would relish in these stats that they give us. But from a fantasy perspective, it sucks because one, we get it later. Two, it doesn't add any stats really for us.
I was just trying to add positivity.
We are not positive on this podcast. God damn it, Bob. You're such a boomer.
Well, if there's one thing that we can all agree on, it's the fact that it doesn't matter how long we have to wait, the inevitable will still happen, and Ramses will still be in last.
Oh, that's forever last.
Oh, wham, freaking wham. I will say I was super excited because I checked the foul play leagues, not realizing they had.
And you said it said you were in first in every league.
I was like, dude, I freaking crushed this weekend. Hell yeah. And then I realized.
I went on
Cruncher 99.
Yeah.
Should I say Cruncher 99?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, so like it's hard to tell right now from ours. Yes, I will say, because like on Draft Buff, we only have half the stats right now because it's week 1 and week 2. It's not everything.
Yeah, so
same with the High Noon leagues.
Yeah, so in regards to standard leagues, it is week 1 and week 2 that combine stuff. So whether you're Draft Buff or your standard leagues, the only thing that's week to week is essentially right now the unlimited drafts over on highnoon.dg. And of course, daily is kind of its own entity, so you kind of have to treat that as its own thing.
Yeah, and I did very well in unlimited this week because I picked people who actually started. And that's not like cockiness. It's I lucked out in picking people who actually started.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I have a question. So please tell me if I'm just overthinking this here. Do the draft buff stats seem a little bit lower than the ones we've been using with High Noon?
Well, it's a
probably
different
because of the negative point for a death.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You lose points for death at draft buff.
True.
Get with the program, Ramses.
Well, you got to give him a break. He probably didn't listen to the episode where we interviewed.
I don't know. After Ed talks for 3 minutes in a row, I kind of just zone out.
How would you know if I talked for 3 minutes in a row? You were 15 minutes late.
I was zoned out for a little bit, but I come back. I mean, it's just in and out,
Uh-huh.
All right, so with that being said, obviously there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about in regards to some of the surprises for Fantasy Overwatch League that happened throughout opening weekend. We got to see some rookie players starting every single map for their teams. We got to see the married man meta, at least for a couple of maps. There were also a lot of splits between tanks and support players, kind of across the board. And some interesting decisions in regards to like what tank duos we saw in regards to the approach in game, whether it was a double barrier running a Reinhardt and Orisa or Reinhardt Diva, which was kind of the go-to on that front. But Ramsey is kind of like looking at the field. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about, but what were some of the surprises that we got to see over this past weekend?
Well, I think the main one for me was with New York, because I think I've said it on this podcast or somewhere else that I expected Who Are You to come in maybe like towards the middle of the season, kind of get some playtime sprinkled in, and he played I think almost every map.
Mhm.
He played
Yeah.
all 7 maps
Remember,
for New York this weekend.
Remember whose sleeper that was last week? Uh-huh. Told you he would have been a steal if you got him. Steal.
I don't know, points wise he wasn't really, but like Who Are You's gonna be Who Are You, at least in the current May meta, seems to be the mainstay guy in there. And then we saw SBB come in for one map, I think against Boston. He played Control as Tracer, but then after that, Nene played I think 6 out of 7 maps for the entire weekend. So going
I
forward,
didn't even. Oh, because I missed the very first map on the first day. Wait, but he wouldn't have played the first map.
No, he played the first 2 maps maybe on the first 2 maps on the second day.
Yeah, I
My
don't think
bad.
he played
My
I
bad.
don't think he played the first day.
Yeah, the first
No,
day
he
was out
didn't.
completely.
no.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure I'm not crazy.
And then you
I
got
was just gonna say, am I the only one who every time we see that I read it as "whore you"?
No, you're not the only one.
I was like, this sounds like a fun college to go to. Sign me up. What's the extracurricular activities here?
the other split we saw Paris Eternal, which I think most people stayed away from the supports in Paris Eternal, but we saw that they look to be splitting Hip and Gray like evenly throughout their games. So it was from what it looked like, it was a even split across all 8 maps, or oh sorry 7 maps. 'Cause I'm trying to remember, they played 3-1.
It was one of those things where the first day, Hip played the first map, and then Gray came in
Mhm.
the rest of the series. But on day 2, they basically stuck with Hip the entire time, and he honestly looked a lot better than Gray did.
Yeah, that was kind of a turnaround too, because like even dating back to that past season towards the later stretch, Gray was basically getting the nod all the time over Hip. So seeing that split that early was kind of surprising. But then again, we did see a lot of variations in regards to the support lineups that we were seeing throughout the weekend there as well.
Yeah, big rip if you started Soon, if you started Smex, because he only had 1 week of playtime. Paris played a lot of players that we weren't necessarily expecting to see right off the bat. So
Yeah.
we saw
I played Smex in my dailies
Mm-hmm.
day 1, and that burned me pretty bad.
What was that? Was that visa issues? Did we get confirmation of that, or was it something else?
Was he the one that was stuck in China?
no,
No.
I don't think so. I know from what I heard, Smex had visa issues, just like our boy Lolsish, who is going to not play again for the first game of the week. But yeah, so
Huh.
Soon didn't play at all. So if for some weird reason, like you're me, you have Soon in any leagues, drop him immediately, I would say, and go pick up Eggsy.
Is it too soon? I don't know if it's too soon.
No, it is not. Nico was the surprise pick there, but he basically just played May.
Yeah.
And May is kind of like, May is super effective, but it seems like May kind of turned out to be the baguette of fantasy.
I always told you she was the devil in so many ways.
Like, she's super vital, but like, you need to have May, but she's not going to score you a lot of fantasy points.
Right.
Yeah, you don't get points for walls.
Well,
no.
The only May players that are scoring a lot of points are the ones that are flexing onto Genji sometimes as well.
So what you're saying is when they're
Haxel.
not playing May.
Yes. So like
Okay, just double checking that.
Hoxell's worth picking up. I mean, he should be picked up.
What? No.
Like Hoxell, Who Are You? I think like maybe even Doha, but
Well, and don't forget, we're gonna have bans coming.
Yep.
Yeah, everything's gonna change the landscape again, but you know, I have to say, like XZ across the board was a very pleasant surprise in regards to DPS rookies coming in. I think out of the rookies, I was most impressed by him and FD God, just seeing the Reddit Lucio plays coming out in the aggression. But man, I laughed so hard in the Boston New York series anytime the Boston players tried to come at the Octopus King and trying to 1v1 Jonak. Didn't work out for Swimmer with
it was good
Lucio.
shit, though.
Collar
It was
Hex
good
got
stuff.
absolutely shit on Reaper v Anna, and it's just it's so good to see Jonak back to that form because everyone just remembers him for being that really good Zenyatta player when Anna had always been his main prior to the league. So seeing him come back to form was really cool to see, and who knows, like this could potentially set him up for another MVP season.
I think so. He was a monster this whole weekend. And we talked already with New York about how we're kind of seeing what DPS timeshare is going to be there. We got to see that a little bit as well with San Francisco. It turns out Striker is going to be the every game player, it looks like, for San Francisco, and they're going to rotate everybody else around him. So Striker, I think,
He wins games.
he was great. Striker was awesome.
Yeah, he was also the top point getter this week on Draft Buff with 138. I actually saw 2 shock players in the top 5. The second one being Troy Hobin, the golden boy himself at 135, so not too far behind on that end.
Hashtag gold.
Mm-hmm.
So if it
Teamwork matters.
It looks like you're going to be able to pick up. Well, granted, I don't remember the next time we're going to see San Francisco play, but if there's anybody out of there that you would be interested in picking up, it would most likely be Striker and Architect, DPS wise.
DPS / support wise. I still think we're going to see Architects moved over to the support.
Yeah, we've been monitoring like what the platforms are going to be doing about that, and it does seem this year that it would be a lot easier to edit what role someone would be in instances like this, similar to what we saw with Karib this past season. So we haven't heard confirmation on whether or not that's actually going to happen, but with hero bans coming up soon, the likelihood of that happening is I feel like more limited, knowing how much Anna we've seen. So there's a very good shot that Anna would just be kind of like nixed out of the rotation anyway at that point.
I think so. Thinking as well, we actually saw a little bit more of a DPS timeshare in Vancouver as well this weekend, right, Bob?
Yeah. We wait, where? Vancouver?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. I thought Stitch played the whole time. Am I crazy?
Nope.
No. Ed, you're muted, by the way.
Ah, crap.
Sorry, save me on this one.
No, Hoxel,
Yeah, no,
Hoxel was the one that was in for every
Hoxel was
map.
on everyone. Stitch and Serum and Sue were switched it up, but like it was a very weird switch up because I mean they were both playing a decent amount of if correct me if I'm wrong, but a decent amount of Reaper.
Yeah.
Like they weren't coming in for specialty on heroes. They were coming more in specialty on maps.
Yeah, and it seemed like too on that end, Ed, Stitch was primarily being brought in case they were wanting to go McCree. They seem to value Stitch's hit scan a little bit more than some in Sue's, but for the most part, they were primarily on Reaper throughout the series.
Yeah, that's the thing is like that's why I gave Stitch my nod over Serum and Sue was because as soon as I saw McCree getting played quite a large amount, I figured Stitch would almost be every game start over Serum and Sue. Now, obviously, when you have King Fissure, things change. But, it worked out well for them. But I still think Stitch is the one to go over Serum and Sue from here on out, if you're going fantasy-wise.
Just looking at like the high noon sets, it looks like there was like a 48-point differential with the nod going to Solomon Sue over Stitch in this case, at least for opening a weekend. And that's based off of the top 3 overall. So I don't know. Either way, like it does seem like for the most part that's been an ongoing theme for the Titans, even dating back to this past season.
I just still don't know a ton about Seo Mitsu and didn't really get to see him do much last year after Goats went the way of the Godo. I don't know. I'll work on that. But yeah, I didn't
Please
see
do.
much but Reaper from him when that happened. So I still just really don't know a ton about Seo Mitsu. Stitch, I know, is an awesome hit scan, but lots of times you don't get a ton of points from, like, if they play Widow, you're not going to get a ton of points.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's more so when he's on the McCree in that case.
Yeah.
But really, like, the other big thing was actually with Bob's team in regards to, like, the tank line. There was a lot of interesting stuff going on there because we did see some teams opt to run Reinhardt and Orisa. But,
And
you know,
lose.
in some cases, like, it wasn't the Reinhardt player that we were expecting. So, Bob, what exactly was Dallas kind of bringing to the fold here with this rotation coming in?
I have no freaking idea, man. I'm hoping that Arrow comes out and clears it up for us, like at least what he was thinking, because they start out and Gamsu and Trill are both playing. We're like, what's going on? And then they play that first game against Valiant and they're double shield. And you're like, okay, well, did they not get the memo that Diva's pretty dang good right now? And we're just like, okay, weird.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first map ends. You're like, oh, they just had some weird thing for control. Notes coming in. We're good. Diva's popping on. And then all of a sudden, Notes playing Reinhardt. And then he's playing Zarya. And finally, maps later, he's like, oh, I guess I'll play some Diva, I guess. And we actually win a map. And then I think he went back to Reinhardt. I don't know. It was just so weird
Mm-hmm.
and bizarre. It made no sense. And then the next day, they come out and they do the same weird double shield thing for control, but it almost works. It would have worked. They would have won that map had Stryker not gotten, in the last few seconds of the map, gotten a freaking nano on Tracer and just killed everyone. I mean, it was carnage. So Stryker just carried that one right in his back pocket. And according to the stats lab, Stryker is the hardest carry in the history of Overwatch in season 1. But he didn't play much. No, I can actually show you that stat. It's actually carry. It's percentage of team kills. So
the flooded
killing blows. He is the biggest in season 1 when he played the majority of the time. He's the biggest Fleta deadlift. But then they go to the next map. You're like, okay, Note's coming in, but no, Trill stays in, and you're like, what's going on? But they do okay-ish. Like, they kind of put up a fight on Eichenwald, and then we go to map 3. Note comes in and he's playing Diva. And you're like, okay. And then we win that map. We're also playing Junkrat, which was weird. We do a full hold. I think San Francisco just got a little bit too cocky, but yeah, it was Dallas is doing some weird stuff. So I don't know what to do. And Unko was supposedly sick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that dude gets sick so often.
I think he's sick with I don't want to play Idas.
Yeah, I mean, because it's becoming a habit. And I know if you're really sick, you can't help that. But just like in a job, you hurt everybody else when you don't show up.
Yeah, well, I mean, even in that regard, we did get to see Crimzo get the starting nod due to Unko not being in there, and Crimzo put up some monster stats across different platforms. He was 3rd overall on Draft Buff. I'm pretty sure he topped out on highnoon.gg. He was pouring in a ton of heal, and a lot of which was on the Baptiste. But going back to the tank situation with the fuel, like, there's been a lot of discussion about, well, how good is Note on these characters that aren't Diva? And it was weird because he primarily wasn't even playing Diva, despite the fact that in that series against the Valiant, KSP was essentially going unchecked, whether it was on McCree or on the Widowmaker, so there was no pressure being put on him, even in the situations where Note was in the game where they could have made that switch, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, they'd have Decay going after the Widow on Tracer. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it might work like once or twice, but eventually things are going to even out, and it's just not the most effective way of dealing with it. So for now, be very weary of starting Note, knowing that a lot of these teams, not a lot, I mean, more teams than not are actually running the Rein Diva, but with hero bands coming and seeing how much Diva that we saw. Note's value is kind of taking a little bit of a hit, so I'm really anxious to see moving forward whether or not these teams that stuck with a double main tank are going to continue to go down that path, or if we're going to see a more even split, knowing that chances are one tank, regardless of role, is going to be out of the equation moving forward the next time we see Dallas on stage.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things, and I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but like, I thought once I started seeing Diva play a lot on the better teams, like I feel the teams that were actually succeeding were running an actual off tank and not just running Orisa Rein.
Mm-hmm.
They're running Rein Diva.
and an aggressive Diva.
Yeah, and
because she can fly forever.
Yeah, the very aggressive Diva, which is something that a lot could pull off. As like, I'm like, how do I put this nicely? It's if you're not as good, you go Rein Orisa. If
That's
you're
what it
going,
felt like.
that's kind of what it
that
felt
might
like.
be it. Yeah, if you're not, and that would make sense for Dallas because they have a lot of new pieces. Like they're not.
Yeah, but
they're,
I'm just
they're,
like,
they're not gelling together.
Well,
but
let's be honest here. Like,
that's about the best excuse I've heard. Is this we didn't think we were good enough to do it.
but they had two tanks that worked together previously. Playing
Used to, yeah.
Rein
remember-
and Diva.
remember Gamsu's Ryan? It's not great.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, they were awesome when it was Monkey Diva,
Right.
Like, if anything,
and they played some Monkey Diva and played pretty good. Sorry,
if they ran like Trill Note, that might be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. All I know is that they got hard carried by
Decay.
Decay.
How many? I need to know how many fantasy points Decay put up this weekend because it just seemed like he was killing.
He put up a lot. He put up a good amount. It's just he can only put up a good amount if the rest of your team is worthwhile.
Yeah, so Matt Soldring actually hooked us up with the stats and the different categories, and we were trying to get clarification on what the categories were, because there's ones that say top 3 best and then top 3 total. So it basically takes the top 3 of each match, and then it selects the highest score. So top 3 total combines all of the top 3 match scores. So looking at that, Decay was actually 5th overall at 396.51. So in regards to DPS, he was 3rd. You had KSP coming in at 2nd, XC in 3rd, and Decay was 5th. With the other pieces in the top 5 being 2 flex supports, that being Crimzo, who topped out at 471 points, and Lastro at 411.9. Really not a name that we might have expected there, and I mean, even McGravy really popped off this week, too. He wasn't too far behind, like, even players like Twilight, who had been very dominant.
Just call Lastro the Sandman. Because he's putting everyone to sleep.
Well, that was Architect.
No, dude, Lastro was killing it.
Architect set the new record.
Yeah,
Did he?
Architect broke the
Second
record
day?
for most sleep darts in a single match.
Well, he only played the second day, Bob.
So he beat Curry's previous record then.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was like
Nice.
It was like 9.3 something sleeps per 10 minutes. Compared to like, I think Kareev was like 1 or 1.5 behind that even.
And
was,
tons of like long distance grenades from Architect too.
Kobe, R.I.P.
absolutely. So really, is there like anything else you guys want to bring up in regards to just reflections that we saw over this past weekend relevant to fantasy?
Pick up XZ, Z, whatever. Get him on your team.
If you're
like,
Well, like when you're looking for DPS, just go for the hit scan players. The May players aren't gonna put up the points you need. Just try and focus on just getting those hit scan players.
Yeah, and like don't read too much in. Like I'll be sell high on certain players. Sell high on McGravy. Sell high on Lastro. Sell high on Rain. People like that who are on crap teams who might not be able to perform as the same level every single match, but you might be able to get top dollar for them at this point. Like McGravy is probably the ultimate sell high right now. Like, yeah, he may continue this, but you could probably get someone who is a little bit more consistent by trading away McGravy, and you could trade McGravy for someone, maybe someone like Michelle. Who probably will end up being better. It might be better in the long run, but McGravy is like a definite sell high option.
Absolutely. So looking at this weekend, we only have one homestand event due to the scheduling issues with the coronavirus going on. So the teams that are going to be in play for the Philadelphia homestand event are Florida Mayhem, Houston Outlaws, Washington Justice, and Philadelphia Fusion. So when it comes to the unlimited side of things this week, I can't really imagine there's going to be a huge amount of variance in regards to who people are going to be fielded. Now, again, these are all teams that we haven't seen compete. Chances are some of these teams might be running double main tank, and it could come back to bite us in the ass in some regards.
So, Ed, how many Outlaws players are you running for this week? 5 or 6?
0.
So outside chance of 1 on a flyer.
Yeah.
Outside chance.
The only one I think that might even have any sort of value would be Dante, and that'd be it.
Meko, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could see Meko play Orisa out of it.
What about Cool Matt?
No one wants Cool Matt. I was saying,
But who's gonna play Diva?
No one. Meko will. Meko only because I think Florida is one of those teams that could start 2 main tanks.
Right.
You know what I mean? I could see them not starting Gargoyle and starting 2 main tanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty at the off tank position because, like, you look at even the Fusion, like they pick up Fury. And a lot of that was just because, like, well, he was on the market. Like, you're just not going to forego picking up who is, like, an A-list, off-tank player. So, in regards to my lineup, like, so far, like, I've been eyeing for the tank line, Gargoyle and Fury. Supports, I am definitely starting Alarm because we expect great things from him. And I don't think they're going to keep Boombox in the rotation. Aim God was the other flex support I was eyeing, and part of me is a little bit worried because of how many times he burned Ramses this past season. But you know what? I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I do like the matches that the Justice have this week in regards to just fantasy potential to go to a Mat 5. And then for DPS, I was thinking Carpe and then Yaki. It's so up in the air, but like I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, who can I kind of like fill in for the captain role? And I was looking at Gaynam Jin from Florida Mayhem, and that kind of worries me. I was like, wait a minute, I'm fielding 3 Mayhem players, and I'm still undecided on whether or not I have weighed in too much on one team. But when you only have 4, it's really hard not to, have 2 of everything, You're
just like, shit, there's only 4 teams playing. And, like you would, a lot of times you might pick Houston players, but let's be real. Everyone's assuming for the Outlaws that it's going to be Toby and Repel.
Jexe and Repel?
No, Jexe and Repel. But... or what happens if Raucus comes in?
Yeah,
because let's be real, the only good part about Raucus is his Ana play.
His Moira's decent too.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's Anna or nothing.
And you know the weird thing about
I'm gonna
that
have to agree with
too.
Ramses though.
The weird thing too, Ed, is like even looking back at this past week, like we actually saw some main supports putting up some monster numbers. I know Rain was even in like the top 10, which you just don't expect to see. So the Valiant actually scored pretty well on that regard. So you know, I'm really curious to see whether or not like the flex role being the end all be all in regards to fantasy scoring is actually going to kind of go away this season.
Yeah,
It
because
might.
like Funny Astro is someone who is known for his Lucio play. That you could be like, this kind of makes sense.
Ed, who's your unlimited lineup for this week?
I basically have the exact same setup. I have Gargoyle, Fury, Alarm, Ingod, Carpe. I think those are probably going to be the majority of everyone's five, right there.
It's pretty close. I might
and-
sprinkle it like EQO possibly. Maybe.
That's the thing. Is like it's that second
Maybe
DPS
Corey.
spot. Like Corey is probably who I'd put in there, but then in unlimited you still have to get a
You have to
a
pay.
captain.
Yeah. Well, you have to. Oh no, unlimited. You don't have to pay. That's
No.
fantasy. I'm crazy.
No, but in unlimited you need to have a captain. So like, who do you pick? I would probably pick Gang Ninja in that Gangman style, because then I'd only have 2 Mayhem players. But there's just way too many questions regarding the Outlaws and
Like,
who's going to start.
I can imagine that Mayhem change their colors to pink and blue and then don't start their runaway DPS in Yaki. But then again, looking back this past season, it was always Saya player and BQB, and BQB actually put up very good fantasy points throughout the entirety of the season, even though he was on the Mayhem. And across the board, they were just kind of so I'm really hoping I'm not setting myself up with the Yaki pick, because that's really the most questionable one that I have penciled in right now.
Ramses, who you taking?
I have pretty much the same as everybody else. I think the only one I have Corey in over Yaki.
Yep.
I would honestly, I don't feel great about starting Gargoyle, but I look at all the other off tanks and there's just no one else I feel good about putting in there.
Well,
Meko possibly.
Meko, me.
He's the only other one I think you could put in. Which is not saying much because there's only one other flex tank besides Meko that isn't getting started.
Who used to be an amazing diva in this type of meta, though. I mean, he just wasn't good in goats.
Coolmat's been retired for a while, but
Oh, dude, what am I thinking? Yeah, you're right. He turned into a coach. Wow. See, Boober.
The only one I've like had thoughts about is Elevote, just because we know for sure he is going to be playing off tank. Like we can guarantee he is going to play off tank. And
because they don't have any other main tanks.
Because Losish is not going to play for the first week because he's still having visa issues like almost a year after this.
Yeah, so it's Roar Elevote.
What did he do? Did he like murder someone?
I'm starting to think maybe.
Like, does he have like an international warrant out for his arrest? Like a year to get. All right.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough go on that end. But Bob, is there anyone else in particular out of like these 4 teams that maybe you're eyeing to fill in for any of these slots here this week?
Yeah, I just was really thinking Corey and EQO. Like I really don't have much of anything else. I really don't know much about Gargoyle, but with you guys picking him, I'll probably pick him now because it's. Like the new players, I just don't know a ton about a lot of them. Some I do, but I just don't follow the tier 2 scene as much. So it's hard to know what's going to happen here these first weeks. So it looks pretty good to me. The only changes, I'll probably just have EQO in over Yaki. And I just think that someone's going to get the points and then Corey is the captain.
Gotcha. Yeah, and really, like, the thing I struggled with just looking at these teams on paper, I really felt like the DPS lines on these teams are very close to one another, at least from, like, a starter potential. Now, Fusion might have the deeper DPS line across the board, but that could also play against you in regards to fantasy score. And if we do see a split at any point for that team in particular, since they do have 5 DPS. So
My gut just tells me EQO. That's all. Could very possibly not start though, because Doom did look good, so Chipsa could have a run.
I have to imagine Chipsa, like they're gonna have to get Chipsa's visa ready and everything as well. I don't think he's with the team right now.
Isn't he from England?
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine getting that. It's what is it? It's not one of those shithole countries.
I'm gonna stay out of that one.
No, he's quoting someone, but still.
Yes, I'm quoting someone.
Probably Trump, maybe. I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
I don't listen, so it's hard for me to know.
Yes, Trump had said he had a travel ban on so-called shithole countries.
Yeah, he also congratulated my Kansas City Chiefs and said, "Good job, Kansas."
Yep.
Hey, he deleted that and said Missouri after he got harassed mercilessly.
Maybe Bob's neighbors are Trump supporters, for all we know.
Or maybe it was Trump.
Or it could have been. You just never know at that point. But anyways, looking at this weekend's event hosted in Philly, I already mentioned all the teams that are going on, but let's do our picks for the week. So, Ed, why don't you go ahead and lead the way and do mini previews of what we can expect to see this weekend?
I don't know how I'm going to decide this on all 4 matchups we have this weekend.
Hey, real quick, though, before we do this, how cool was it, though, to just have 8 matches? Like, I could take in so much.
I will say this. They need to come up with, and this is a production issue again, and I ranted about this, I think, on Discord and on Twitter.
More Cheez-Its?
No more Cheez-Its.
I already had Ro complaining and asking for Cheez-Its after I tweeted that we were going live, so.
But if you, between the New York and Dallas homestand on day 2, there was 30 minutes of dead air.
Yeah, but dude, what are you gonna do, dude?
But that's the thing. You obviously can't start the other matches early, but you can have segments. You can have more commercial breaks. Maybe have the desk do some other stuff. You have to have contingency. You need to have a contingency plan where you don't have 30 minutes of dead air.
Well,
I bet they do that later. Although they did combine the streams, whereas day 1. It wasn't combined, but they did combine it. It was weird that it was on the Play Overwatch channel too, but probably smart. But it was still cool to be able to just retain so much, because before, with 16 matches a week or 12 to 6 to 16, it was a little tough at times. Some games would run together. You'd forget a lot of stuff. Have to go back and look. This was really, it was good.
I did like that there were fewer matches. I just didn't like the dead air.
Yeah.
In between.
For those that were wondering, I know a lot of people have been asking about the Overwatch League replay viewer and when stuff was getting posted there. The matches were basically getting posted on Monday evening Pacific time. So if you're looking to do VODs or anything like that, or just practice casting, that's when you should be looking at launching the client on that regards. You can do whatever you need to do on that end.
So, all right, let's get into these pick'ems, because there's only 4 matches. So we'll start off with the first one on Saturday, which is the early game at 1 o'clock Pacific, and that's the Florida Mayhem versus the Houston Outlaws. So, Bob,
yes,
who do you have winning in this one between the 2 teams of very, very different rosters from what we're used to?
Well, I just don't know much about the rosters, and to be quite honest, I'm going to go with just a couple different facts. Season 1, the Mayhem had one of their star DPS driving the bus. Season 2, they hired Bare Hands, in Bare Hands We Trust, and then they let Bare Hands change the team to Korean, and then they got rid of Bare Hands, and now we're in season 3, and I don't know what their deal is. Houston finally made a good call, hired Harsha, and I think that was a good move. So I'm just gonna go with those moves and say Houston Outlaws.
Okay. So I would say the big thing is the Mayhem brought in some people from Runaway, which I
Mhm.
think a lot of people.
But it's
were-
still the Cursed Mayhem.
But you got to also take into account that before they even got the Runaway players, this team took what, third place in stage 4.
They were doing pretty good.
Like, so
Yeah,
they were
they
doing
did
pretty
some
good,
more
and
Stuff again. They got rid. It's just weird. It's
yeah,
just
they got
it's all
Fate for the
weird.
Valiant. They got Gargoyle, who's one of the heroes. But Ramses, I want to get as a resident and Outlaw fan, what are you looking at on this one?
Look, it's a new season. I'm ready to be heard
A
again.
new
I'm allowed to.
time.
Oh God, no! You're never
New
allowed.
life,
You're never
and
allowed to
I'm
start off with.
feeling
Well, we have a
good.
new season. That's how the Cleveland Browns talk. Okay.
Boom.
Well, it's a new season.
Boom, boom, boom,
mean-
boom, boom. Sorry, I was just giving you a soundtrack.
So, all right, Ramses, talk without us harassing you.
I know you guys if you guys can handle it. I think because it's the first one, I'm always partial to Houston, but I think that Houston is going to get off on a good foot. I just don't. I think Florida still has some stuff to put together, and the nondescript homer in me is pulling for Houston in this one. I think they take it. I do think Florida's going to score higher though. Like the Florida fans.
You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
If I could handle the truth, I wouldn't be a Houston Outlaws fan. So,
That is
Did you or
very
did you
true.
not order the code red?
no, I think I'm pulling for Houston. If I'm being honest, though, I think Florida wins it.
I mean, for me personally, I think Houston wins this.
I'm tipping Mayhem in this particular one.
This is another one where we just don't know
Yeah,
what's
it's so
going
up
on.
in the air.
On paper, this one is the closest one to me.
And I
Out of the
think on
four.
paper the Mayhem look better, but I'm just talking about the intangibles and the weirdness of Mayhem.
Yeah, and I mean, let's use this comparison because it is relevant to the situation. Because Dallas is in a similar situation as Florida, where Dallas does have not quite like the record for total losses as a franchise, but they are near the bottom, as are Mayhem. And both of these teams did bring a lot of new pieces into the fold, and Fuel had some high points, but they ultimately went 0-2. And who knows? Maybe we might see similar things out of Florida this weekend.
Yeah. So let's go to our second game and final game of Saturday. And that is the Washington Justice versus the newly revamped Philadelphia Fusion. So, Ramses, we'll start with you on this one. Between the Corey-led Justice with your boy Aim God,
The boy.
and the Fusion, which is the Fusion.
We can
that
work on
doesn't
that.
really
We
work.
can work on that.
We can. I feel we can work something out with Fury and Fusion. Like they both start FU. Like I feel we can make something.
Bro, FU doesn't exist anymore. That's a thing of the past,
A Fudgery? Fiergery? I don't know. We'll work on that for next week. But between these two teams, who do you got winning?
Controversial pick. I'm picking the Washington Justice for this matchup.
What?
Considering you're always in last place, I am not shocked.
I have you know what, Ed? I have one word. I have one reason why.
Let's
Philadelphia's gonna
see.
lose.
Yeah, let's see.
Let's see your
Let's hear it.
reasoning.
Philadelphia has Sato on their team, aka they're losing this weekend. I don't.
Okay, and I've got one word: Stratus. Stratus can
got-
play some
Stratus is a great
freaking
name.
May. Yeah. That's one word to support your argument.
I just think Washington takes it. I don't think Sato's good enough to hang. I don't honestly, as much as we think Fury's going to start the whole time, I think Poco comes in for at least one map.
And I've said this many times before. Sato's pretty mean in person. I've interviewed him. It was not a pleasant experience.
Well, all right, let's go back to what Ramsey just said. You think they'll bench Fury for Poco?
Poco's going to play one map this weekend, at least.
Poco bombs.
No, there are no more Poco bombs.
Bullshit.
bombs
It's
have
always gonna, just like
No.
his Fleta deadlifts. It's always gonna be
No,
Poco bombs.
it's hot bombs.
Nope. They tried
It is
to do
hot
it, and
bombs.
I told them no. I
Hot bombs.
vetoed that.
Poco's going to play at least one map this weekend. I think Stratus is a better May than EQO. When I look at it, I don't feel good about Philly just clean sweeping this. I think Washington takes it.
How about would you rather have a main tank who hasn't played professionally in like a year?
Roar's played.
What about Elliot? Or sorry, off tank that hasn't played in a year.
I don't feel great about Elevo, but I think he's the one weakness I see compared to the 2 or 3 when I look at Philadelphia.
How about the guy who got benched in Boston?
He didn't bench. He refused to play. And when he would come in for
How is
one-off
that any
games-
better?
And he would come in for one. He came in for one-off games, crapped on all the kids, and then left again. He was great.
No, he wasn't, because he was a little bitch and he refused to play.
Washington Justice win 3-2.
Oh my god.
I'm not feeling it. I firmly
Thank
believe
you.
the Fusion are gonna take this. We're in a meta right now where individual play comes through more so than actual teamwork. And
That's why Corey's gonna kill everyone. Exactly.
I don't believe that because
Yeah,
the amount of pressure that is going to be on him is going to be a lot higher than what I'm assuming Elivote's going to be able to do, knowing that he's going to be on stage for the first time. And even when he was on stage at the World Cup, that kid underperformed beyond belief, as did that entire country team as a whole, which also did include the other main tank that isn't starting. But I don't buy into the whole, oh, Sato's just completely washed, when you're looking at Roar, who was another below-average main tank for the Gladiators. Like, that's just going to be even Stevens on that point.
Honestly, I never thought Sato was good. I called for him to be benched for Fraggy multiple times. I agree with a lot of what Ramses is saying, but the problem is EQO, and if EQO is leveled up May, I don't think they have a chance. But I think Stratus is the thing that could change the tide for the Washington Justice. But it's not my turn, so I don't know why I'm talking.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Sunday. So Sunday, one where we don't have to hear stupid Ramsey predictions.
See, you know what I think is hilarious? How many times have you told me, like, no, come out with an opinion, defend an opinion, and I make an opinion, you're like, you suck.
No. There's a difference between you suck and you're stupid.
This just in.
Awkward silence.
Saturday evening, when I have a head just as big as yours with all that.
Yeah, look at Bob's shirt. This just in. You're an idiot. Ramses, that's for you. All right, let's go to Sunday.
Full disclosure, I wore the shirt for Ed.
Yeah, fair enough. So Sunday, the 1:00 game, we have the Washington Justice, who, according to Ramses, is a top 5 team, and the Houston Outlaws playing. So we're not going to include Ramses on this one. So Toto, who do you have winning between top 5 Justice and the Houston Outlaws?
I'll be honest, Ed, I am not high on the Justice compared to a lot of people. But I also have a lot of question marks about how the new Outlaws are going to do. I know a lot of people were really happy about Harsha getting a nod for head coach. I still don't know how I feel about it, just because he's still unproven at that level. Because with the Titans, he was basically just there to help get all of their Korean players kind of like acclimated to being in the States. So I need to see more from him at the role that he's at before I really know how good of a coach he actually is. Despite, how much he's grown, season to season at this point. But, Justice, I feel like they'll be able to win the Widow duel between Corey and Linkser, more than likely in this case. And I do have a little bit more confidence in the May side of things as well. So I feel like this one is going to be close, as is the other Outlaws game. But I firmly believe Outlaws are going to come in and go 0-2, and then Texas Watch is going to be 0-4 to start the season.
See, I guess and this is weird. This is weird for me to say. I will admit. I think Houston's gonna go 2-0. I think the Outlaws are gonna beat the Justice for the simple fact that I like the team that they've built, and I think it can work. I think they have the depth to rotate out DPS.
And
I
you're
think-
falling in the same trap we've all fallen in. Don't fall in.
You
Don't
fell
fall
into
in.
you fell into the trap when they had crap players. They actually got some decent ones on the team now.
Yeah,
They
but
have
who's the leader though? That's the thing I worry about.
yeah.
Jexay for Outlaws.
Yeah, Jexay is probably the leader. So like I think they upgraded 4 spots, 4 of the 6 spots, and the other 2 are Dante and Muma, who were already pretty strong. They upgraded everything else, including coach.
Mhm.
Like I think the Houston Outlaws will win this one. It should be a close game, but I think the Outlaws will prevail on this one.
Yeah, that's fair. I like my major thing is I just feel like the Outlaws will be slow to get out of the gate. Because we really don't know how the team environment is meshing in regards to the Korean talent being brought in. So I'm a little bit concerned on that front, but I do agree, like, they did make a ton of really good changes. But, you know, we were hyping up Dallas's changes, and then that kind of bit them in the ass opening the weekend, and I don't know, I just got that feeling that Texas is not going to be too happy when all is said and done in this case.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, let's move on to our last game of the week, and that is the Florida Mayhem versus the Philadelphia Fusion. Bob, I'm coming to you on this one. Who do you got in the Mayhem versus the Fusion?
It's so weird because I feel like Justice could possibly beat Fusion, but I feel like there's no chance Mayhem can beat Fusion. I don't know. I'm low on the Mayhem like you're low on the Justice. Like I'm just not like I until I see something from that organization that lets me know that their players even feel safe, then I'm just not I just can't.
That's fair with the Mayhem because you've been through almost 2 years of disappointment. You need proof. You need proof before you can believe.
Yeah, 2 years of borderline calling, social services for child abuse. I mean, like, it's been bad. What has come out of
It
the
has
Mayhem.
been bad. I mean, I'm gonna go Fusion on this one as well. I think that's pretty easy. Not to mention, it's also a Philly homestand as well.
Mm-hmm.
That I think the Fusion are gonna pretty much sweep this one. I'm very high on the Fusion this year. I think they're a top 5 team.
I just hope they've beaten whatever it was that was having them looking like they weren't having fun on stage last year. I'm hoping they come out.
I'm hoping
and
that
look
was
like
the
they did
Goats
season
Blues.
1. Yeah, I'm hoping so, and not
Yeah.
like some sort of team chemistry rift or something of that nature.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see this new support lineup. Like that's one thing everyone kind of talks about the Fusion and they brought Carpe back, they brought EQO back, they brought in Fury, but not everyone's like, well, they got Alarm and Funny Astro.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very aggressive Fusion approach moving forward, and I cannot wait to see how that is going to unlock Carpe moving forward.
Yep.
Click, boom.
Click, boom. All right. So I think that should probably do it for our show tonight.
Yeah, pretty much. So with that being said, guys, I do want to thank you again for joining us tonight on another episode of OWL by the Numbers. And of course, like there's a lot going on as per usual. We do have an announcement in regards to game night. which will be coming up, but we'll get into that in just a minute. But Ed, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know what one of the best ways to actually help us out as a podcast is?
So the best way you can truly help us out is by reviews. So you can show some support for the show by giving us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice, iTunes. Because really, all the rest of them don't have the best way of getting reviews. Just use iTunes. So any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcome.
Like Ed lashing out at Ramses.
Yeah. It'll offer us insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for all of you. Bob, why don't you tell us about where you can find all things Overwatch?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Ed, because you can find a listing of several Overwatch League, and Path to Pro podcasts over on our website at owlnshow.com/OWRecall. Episodic listings are released every Sunday night. To keep up to date with the podcast seed, follow Overwatch Recall on Twitter at OWRecall.
Yeah, and
Ramses.
I just want to say about really quick, with Overwatch League starting back up again, we had close to 30 Overwatch podcasts releasing new episodes this past week. It was amazing to see. And
I know, I've been trying to catch up on them all.
I'll have to go back and check the stats, but that might be the most episodic listings we have seen in any week period since the beta days of Overwatch, which is really crazy to think about. But I do want to get back into the creator interviews here very soon, so I'll be reaching out to some people on that end. So expect more, at least on that RSS feed, coming up here very soon. But we do have other things that are in the pipelines here very soon. So, Ramses, why don't you go ahead and let them know, when game night is coming up, because that's right around the corner.
For sure. Let me get the actual days right. So not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday, we're going to see a return of Overwatch League Network game night starting at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And we're going to be doing a bunch of different community games. You can link up with us over on the Discord server to get invited to the actual lobby where we're going to be playing out of. We will be streaming everything live on Twitch as well. So if you want to watch me and Ed just yell at each other for 2 hours, that's your spot. Overwatch League Owl and Show on Twitch.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to help us out further, consider pledging to our Patreon, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. And of course, you can find more info at our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network, where you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons of Boomer Bob, Brendan, Jay-Z, Owl, Kesha, and Agent Life in helping our network grow. But with that being said, Ramses, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how they can contact the show?
For sure. If you want to send us something long form, you can hit us up at contact@owlandshow.com, Twitter at owlbythenumbers, and at our website at www.owlandshow.com. You can find our content on YouTube at youtube.com/C/Overwatch League Network, Discord. If you want to hang out with us online, talk to all the hosts, just get involved with our community we're growing here at discord.me/Owl and Show. And then our Twitch channel, which if you're currently watching this you are on Twitch, you already know. But just in case you want to watch the show live, twitch.tv/Owl and Show. And we are a Twitch affiliate, so you can help us out and support the show by subscribing to the channel, and you can earn our network emoticon. We stream pretty regularly. We do Overwatch League Network on Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific time. This show you're hearing right now, Owl by the Numbers, on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And on Wednesday, you can hear our variety show, Heroes Never Die. And I do mean variety, at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And occasionally we do host streams. I know Totem will usually host a stream for a little bit before we go into before we record the actual show. So if you want to watch some ranked games there. And if you follow us on Twitch, you'll be able to get notifications for every time we're going live. And last thing before I forget, if you want to contribute directly to the show itself, a great way to be doing that, like we already said, is the Patreon. So you can hit us at patreon.com/OWL Network.
Okay. And our question of the week.
Boo.
So, no, this is a good one. This is a good one. Okay. So the Oscars were on Sunday.
Yep.
Okay.
Parasite won it all. Yep.
Yes, Parasite won it all. But my question is, John Williams. Everyone knows John Williams. Composed the Star Trek, Harry Potter, Jurassic Park, all that stuff.
Wait, John Williams did the Star Trek one too?
Star Wars.
Okay.
I've had a couple of drinks. So Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, list goes on. How many Oscars has he been nominated for? And how many has he won?
I'm gonna have to sit this one out because I haven't watched the Oscars for 9 years.
Okay, let's just say this. Let's exclude this year. So no spoilers for this year.
Man, he's
So,
been
you
at it
guys-
for so long because I know his Academy Awards are up there too. And I honestly don't know all the nominations for this year, Ed, so this is gonna throw me off. But
I will say this: he was nominated this year.
Wait, hold on. The Oscars is the Academy Awards, right? They're the same thing.
hold on. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think really quick.
11.
It's a lot more than that.
11.
The shit.
It's closer towards 50. I don't know the exact number.
He
though.
has. I will tell you this: he has the second most Oscar nominations of all time, behind Walt Disney.
And he is like, I'm pretty sure like close to 60, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just gonna say 50.
Okay, you were very close, Totem. So this year was his 52nd nomination for an Oscar
Oh, jeez.
as a composer.
Ridiculous.
Out of those 52, how many do you think he's won?
That I don't know.
Ramses?
35.
Bob,
35.
you got a guess? Out of 52.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, I haven't watched for 9 years.
I'm
I boycotted them long
I'm
ago.
gonna take the under and say 14.
Okay, you should have taken the under more.
1.
5.
Okay.
He is 5 for 52 in the Oscars, which is insane. But
But he's
that
got a
is
lot of free
can't win
parties,
them all.
you know?
yeah, he's been nominated for every Star Wars movie, all the Harry Potter movies, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, like so.
The list
All
goes
right.
on.
Yeah, John Williams, greatest composer in history. Just gonna throw that out there right now. Screw you, Beethoven, Mozart, go to hell. So you can contact me personally, Edinar, on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar, where soon I will be streaming a Dropping Spicy versus Push the Point fiasco.
Oh man.
See, I haven't played Apex since consoles for like I haven't played Apex for at least like a year and a half at that. So
Mhm.
Get good, bro.
Smart man.
Piss off.
If it makes you feel any better, I don't like any battle royales.
All
So
right, fair enough.
they're all
All right,
bad
Bob.
to me.
Bob, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB.
Absolutely.
You can-
And Ramses.
you can find me on Twitter at Ramses_OW, and you can find my show It's Gonna Kill Ed show over at Pushpoint.pod, where we're still getting our stuff together. I don't really know. I'm gonna have to go play Apex like directly after this. So
You don't even have a third person.
I
I
know.
think I have. we
Bosco's
haven't-
going to carry, though. I mean,
Yeah, but they have
Well, then
Labasco
people-
and Ramses.
yeah,
but
but
they
if
don't have a
it's
third.
your
We
push the
have-
point team, I know that Hitscan Pro West.
But I got Kinder.
Yeah, I know Kinder's. I mean, I know exactly how well he
We'll get-
is.
I got Kinder and Kura.
Bro, we'll get Noonie. We'll crush you. It's all.
No. You have to get to mash those buttons. You better get Ja real quick.
You already have 3. You can't get another one.
No, I said you better get Ja
All right, I'll talk to Joe.
for your team. Do you realize? Do you
I
understand the
understand.
words that are coming out of my mouth?
Apparently
I
not.
understand. I try to be funny. But yeah, that'll be fun. Totem, where can they find you at?
Well, you can find me over on Twitter at TumblrDrunkCTR, and I do stream Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights at twitch.tv/TumblrDrunk, where you can find me hard carrying gold support games as Moira and just chuckling every time I coalescence.
I don't know. I saw a couple of your gold games the other day.
Hey, I went 4-2 yesterday. It's a winning record.
You were on Lucio.
That was for 1 point of a map. And that was the only time. Pretty much every time else was on Moria. But anyways, that's besides the point. Thanks again, guys, for joining us for OWL by the numbers. This has been episode number 38, and we'll see you guys back hopefully tomorrow for the next episode of Heroes Never Die. Take care and have a good night.
Peace out, y'all.
Later.
Bye-bye.